Freddie. We want to dig deeper now into last night's presidential debate, specifically looking at issues with a distinct impact on Texans. Politics reporter Ryan Chandler joins us now. I know you were up. This was like the Super Bowl, right, for politics guys. You watched the debate. I did too. There was a lot of talk about energy, renewables, oil, gas. Texas, a leader in all of that. So what did these candidates have to say about how they would regulate those energy industries?
Yeah, right. I mean, everybody knows Texas is one of the world leaders in oil and gas, but we're also one of the leaders in the world for renewable energy, whether it's wind and solar. And we heard an interesting exchange, first from former President Trump praising solar and other renewables, saying that he wants to support those, but not at the expense of oil and gas, lobbing attacks onto Kamala Harris about what he says her record has and would be on domestic oil and gas production. Now, she says she wants to increase domestic production and says, contrary to her former statements when she was running for the Democratic primary so many years ago, that she would not ban fracking and in fact wants to support American oil and gas in order to compete with some of our foreign adversaries' production. So a really interesting conversation there that doesn't quite fall on the typical partisan lines that you might expect.
So another big issue that came up was abortion, and at one point even Vice President Harris made reference to Texas's law regarding abortion.
Yeah, she said in one state doctors can go to prison for life for performing an illegal abortion. That is, of course, true in Texas. But we also heard a really interesting exchange here started by Donald Trump, who said we should have exceptions in abortion bans for rape and incest. He said more than 80% of Republicans support that. It was interesting to hear because, as we know, that is not true in Texas. We have one of the strictest abortion bans in the country that does not provide for those exceptions. So that is at least one part where Texas law is actually out of step with the leader of the Republican Party.
So former President Trump brought up the issue of a new type of crime, migrant crime. It's something that we've heard from Governor Greg Abbott as well as U.S. Senator Ted Cruz.
Right.
So how prevalent is migrant crime actually?
When we talk about this, we think of some high-profile examples of tragic murders committed by people who are not legally in the country or who were detained for crossing illegally and then released. There are many prevalent examples of that. However, when we talk about crime across the board among this large group of people, according to Texas DPS's own data, undocumented immigrants actually commit violent crime, property crime, most kinds of crime at lower rates than U.S. citizens. In fact, they found that American citizens are more than twice as likely to be arrested for a violent crime than an undocumented immigrant.
Interesting. All right. So to hear each candidate speak, each one of them won the debate. There was no loser.
Yeah.
Donald Trump says he won. Kamala Harris says she won. Tell us what Texas leaders are saying. I'm guessing it's probably along bipartisan lines, right?
Well, it's about a 90-10 split. I mean, exactly. Whoever won this debate is up to you. We don't crown a winner. I did see one poll that CNN put out shortly after the debate among undecided voters, I believe, that had more than 20% of difference saying that Harris won. That was the concept from their viewers. But again, this is not a formal debate. There's not a winner and loser. Whoever won or lost is up to you. And remains to be seen if there will be another debate. I know the Harris camp is already pushing for one. We'll see if they can make that happen.
And generally what happens the day after a debate or something like that is that, you start to, into our newsroom, start to trickle the emails from the different politicians saying that either, whatever side they're on, partisan side they're on, that person's the one who did great. So we'll probably get more of that as the day goes on.
Exactly. And this is when the spin starts. And in fact, Donald Trump was in the spin room himself after the debate.
We had that, yes.
With Fox. So I don't know if we've seen that before.
Yeah, I know. It did seem pretty rare.
Unprecedented times in a lot of ways.
Ryan, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate that.